was planning to do this. There were a lot of questions that were asked, such as, is this going to be feasible for on the landlords and the tenants aspects? How do we make the move from yearly to monthly? And especially as we've had the Mrs. Toke Benson Awinka, who's a special advisor to the state governor on housing, disclosing that the new well in her house rent up front. So people are asking how are we going to demand of real estate. So is this okay? So now the Lagos State Commissioner for Finance, Dr. Rapio, said that the state government. What do you think of this?
Basis upon which they arrived at statistics they're projecting to the public, but then there's a need or they think it would be for them to have I don't see anything wrong with it, but as we get into discussion,
And
for apart from the survey that was taken,
Mhm.
the rationale for getting us to be on a monthly rent payment scheme is that people earn monthly
Yes.
salaries.
Mm.
Most
Opposed to
people,
yearly.
yeah. So they think, as they earn their pay monthly, let them pay their rent also monthly. Um, what one thing we should understand is that it's not a law, it's some scheme, it's a policy, so it's not enforceable on people. So it's some sort of social welfare scheme that the government is trying to put in place. So people who desire to pay monthly would latch onto the scheme, and people who enjoy paying yearly can continue to pay yearly. Yeah, so that's the position. Yeah, so it's like choose what you want, yearly or monthly.
But like I asked you earlier, though, I was saying, so there are mixed reactions about this. I mean, across board. But then again, do you think that landlords are being disenfranchised?
Okay, if we're going to look at the framework as presented by the Commissioner for Finance and also the Special Advisor to the Governor on Housing, um, it doesn't show in any way that landlords are going to be disenfranchised, right? Because it gives the tenant and the landlord options. First, the tenant applies to the whatsoever body is going to be regulating this scheme to help them pay the landlord upfront. So the landlord is not in any way disenfranchised, is not in any way disadvantaged in this matter. So for any tenant to be part to take advantage of this, they apply to whatever body would regulate it, and then the government pays the yearly rent upfront to the landlord. So it's some sort of advantage, to the landlord who doesn't have to worry whether, oh, is everything going on with my tenant? Will he be able to pay the rent at the end of the year? So the obligation to pay the to take rent is now between the Lagos state government and the tenant. So in a nutshell, the government unbinds the relationship between the financial relationship between the landlord and the tenant to themselves and the tenant.
Now, Soji, I know that Richard has spoken about the law, but that's actually a question that I want to ask you, right? So, what exactly does the Lagos Tenancy Law, the 2012 Lagos Tenancy Law, say in light of this? Do we need the law to be changed for this scheme to take effect, to be implemented?
I don't think you have to change the law for the scheme to be implemented, to become effective. Firstly, I'm very much aware of the tenancy law of Lagos State, and then beyond that, it was first the novel issue was introduced by the present Minister of Works, Mr. Papatile Fashola.
Okay.
He tried as much as he can to see how they can criminalize. In fact, it's even a criminal offense. That's one of the very strangest law in terms of the wording. Criminal offense to demand for and then also pay rent in advance beyond 6 months for a yearly tenant.
Okay.
So it's something that's been muted over time. They've been trying to change it with law. That's on one hand. Let's look at the private sector. You have all sorts of.
In fact, sorry, I actually, because you said that, you reminded me of something that I had seen, that the Nigerian Senate is wants to, what was it? Now, they've said that they want to make it an offense for any landlord to demand payment in advance of 3 months, for more than 3 months now.
That is the same thing with Lagos State tenancy law. And the law they are making, let me just correct you, it's in respect of FCT alone, not applicable to the whole country. You should get that very right. The Lagos tenancy, of course, still it's applicable to Lagos and the other states, House of Assembly. They've also made
the
law in that
tenancy for
respect.
Lagos State is 6 months as opposed to
Yes, that you
3
shouldn't.
months.
Yes, you shouldn't demand for, and you shouldn't pay. It's like if my landlord is saying I should pay more than 6 months, so that's an offense. Then if I'm paying it, that's also an offense. So you get.
Can I ask this on a lighter note though? So if you're saying that it's in 6 months it's an offense, then that means all the rents that's been paid in for a year in advance. Or 2
We're all
years,
supposed to
is
be
it-
the invoice.
That goes back to the question she asked.
Okay.
That how effective can this law be
Okay.
in resolving some of these things? I might take the thing is these issues are more of a socio-cultural issue. It's just like you trying to, and I'm sure we're very much aware about this, trying to regulate spraying of money in parties. It's something they've over time released all sorts of regulations to curb, but then it's a social thing. And I also recall there are also other things that are social issues. Trying to use law to solve these things will not come in a day. It's possible, but it's something that has to be a very gradual process, and that's why I commend the Lagos State initiative. Even if I was going to mention earlier on, this scheme has also been introduced by a series of private investors,
right?
saying that okay, we can give you the rent advance. Even banks are doing it in a very small scale. Oh, you want this loan, we can give it to you. But I was going to also mention, to add to the point that my friend here mentioned, that what the government is trying to do is to have it like a bank, and they will do all sort of due diligence on anyone who is interested, and it's more like unbinding the relationship between the tenant and the landlord. They assume that responsibility to parents. Now the other question is, at what interest will interest rates apply? And will it be taxpayers' money using to finance? Those are questions. Those are questions we should actually start asking ourselves. So my take is that it's going to be a gradual process if we want to use law to solve some of these socio-cultural issues.
All right. Tell you what we should do. Let's go on a quick break. Don't forget, you can get your thoughts in as well. If you've got questions for Richard and Soji this morning, send your messages to 0809-444-0981.
And once we get back from the break, we see the phone lines going, so we will be taking your calls. The number to dial, get yourselves ready, is 0144-89981.
Awesome.
Andy?
You guys good? Are you guys okay? You good?
Cool.
I had to use person.
Okay, let's have a look. What is this thing? So we'll have an interview that way.
I don't think it can be implemented. But
My
then again,
company's
we'll talk
name
about
is
this.
G3FR Properties. With that policy, I don't think it can stand. It's not matured for this country. It's an advanced country. We don't have the system here. It's not going to pay the landlord. The landlord knows how much he puts on ground to build his house. You can't be telling him what and what to do about his own property. Two, the landlord have a lot of things to do with the money. You can't be paying how much you want to pay monthly. So that's going to take care of his bill. If that policy comes and stands, my name is Obadari Olalekan. My company's name is G3FR Properties.
So what do you
With
say
that
his name?
policy, I don't
Obadari
think
Olalekan.
it's not matured for this country. It's an advanced country.
Olalekan.
We don't have the system here. It's not going to pay the landlord. The landlord knows how much he puts on ground to build his house. You can't be telling him what and what to do about his own property. Two, the landlord have a lot of things
you
to
needed
do
something.
with the money. You can't be paying how much you want to pay monthly. So
So
that's
the
going to
part
take care of his
the
bill.
things that we
If
know currently
that
about the
policy
scheme,
comes
we
and
should
stands,
educate listeners on
definitely
that.
you are taking from, let me say, $1 million or 1.2 million annum, which is 100K per month.
I can't
Then
remember.
the landlord will tell you, my house is not 50K per month.
What do you mean?
You want you
Olaliko Badare,
you don't
who
want
is,
to
I mean,
He's a house
the
agent.
client will say double of the price is supposed to pay the case.
You as an agent, how do you see this affecting you? I know you're also a landlord, but how does it affect you as an agent?
How do you want us to be getting our commission? Do you want us to be getting our commission? Is it monthly or are you telling me
I love it.
the client will be paying every month and will be paying
So the misconception is that
We're coming back in 10
It's
10
not-
seconds, please.
You know, how
Yeah, you come up and bring that.
rather you directly
Studio.
with the landlord.
All right, there you have it. Words from Olaliko Obadari right here on Lagos Talks. For a special Wednesday, we are talking about paying of monthly rent in Lagos and when it commences and what exactly it is that you should be on
Aware
the
of.
lookout for. Yeah, so this is Smooth Breakfast. I'm Shaka Martins and
Kylie Baker.
yes.
And Jeremy, of course, such a Jeremy. We're talking all about yearly and monthly rents, and we'd love to hear your thoughts about this. The phone lines are really buzzing. Should we get to the phone lines first?
Let's take a call first of all. Then we'll give you some more information about what we currently know. Hello, good morning. Oh, looks like we lost that one. Let's try another call. Hello, good morning. Okay, lost that one. 01448991. Call us up. Now, what we know currently is the Lagos State Monthly Rent Scheme is a social investment program that is supposed to kick off this year. And the state government has set aside 5 billion naira for the success of the scheme, and more is supposed to come through. We've already had our guests in the studio discuss the issue of private sector funding as well, and how that could be a factor. Now, under this scheme, how it's supposed to work is that monthly rent will be paid upfront to the landlord directly from your account as a tenant, from the tenant's account. And Lagos will be partnering with financial institutions on this. What else do we know, Kadi?
Well, we do know that this was also individually talked about doing this, and so you just mentioned before the break that it actually is a crime. Well, not a crime now, but 6 months. If it's in 6 months, generally, you're not supposed to pay your rent beyond 6 months, right?
That this is actually enshrined in law, right?
Yes.
It's enshrined in
Okay,
the law,
sure.
but
So
so now there's this talk about being a monthly thing, and so like just much like our last what's the word now
So we actually
Person
had
reached out
we reached out to Olaliko
Olaliko
Obadari,
Obadari.
who's an agent and a landlord, but he was speaking on from his the perspective of agents, talking about so how exactly is this going to work for agents, because agents are stakeholders in this as well. And so we are trying to just take a look at how this scheme would, what kind of ramifications it would have, good, less good as well, for the different stakeholders that are involved. Now, we've said that we'll be taking your calls, so let's see if we can take another call on 01448991.
Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning. What's your name and your location?
Hi,
Okay,
Benjamin
Benjamin.
Jaleki. Go on with your question.
About the pardon? Okay. Okay,
time.
now Benjamin, because we've got our guests in the studio who are quite knowledgeable on this, we've got Soji Ojerinde, and Soji. So I know that you have a response to Benjamin's question.
Yes, absolutely.
So Benjamin, would you like to stay on the line for this, or would you like to go off? Okay.
Well, I think your question just literally throws part of the pitfall we may have with this law. Now, the framework we're talking about, let me just tell you, it's a scheme whereby the Lagos state government pays the landlord. Now, the default now is the Lagos state government that will be dissipating public resource to go after tenants that will default in paying back, because the monthly payment will now be between Lagos state government and the tenant. You understand? So if there's a default now, is it that Lagos state government will now start running after the tenant?
So that means that
So it's something like I said. I also had the issues with sustaining this. You know, I asked earlier on, and I mentioned earlier on, is it the taxpayers' money that will be used to fund payment of rent for private contracts? And over time, another government come in and then be like, I'm not sure I want to. This is sustainable for me.
Okay, so I have something
Yes,
also
sure.
to add. Just to put a balance to this. In the words of the Commissioner for Finance, right, of Lagos State, so he had said, at the point of disclosing this scheme, the plan, that as part of putting it together, we have gone through a lot of risk analysis and risk evaluation to look at how it would work, right? So we are hoping that they've looked at all the possible risks that could come with this scheme, the operational risk, the legal risk, the default risk, and also they have some measure to put in place to pre-qualify people to be able to be part of this scheme, right?
All right then. So Benjamin, questions answered, or do you have even more questions now?
I think in putting together a workable framework, the government has to be considerate to the landlord that has probably put his life investment in having this properly.
All right then.
If he's not, if he has to settle for a kind of monthly payment, and then he's not assured of his income. So would the tenant have to pack out the next month?
No, that's interesting.
Go into it. All right, Benjamin.
All right, thank you,
so much
Benjamin.
for sharing, Benjamin. Okay.
So Benjamin,
I think
Soji, what
from
did
the
you want to say?
investment perspective that Benjamin just mentioned, it just made me had this wild thought. I'm beginning to think, if government start paying, would that necessarily mean that government may probably, of course, for the power it words, to say that, okay, you know what, this house within this area, this is the flat rate we'll pay as rent. Those are other questions.
Okay,
we probably
so
begin to ask each other.
What I have to say is that to answer Benjamin, I think we need to really understand the framework. It is not a law, right? So
Yes.
no landlord can be compelled or mandated to give their house out.
It's
on
a
this
scheme that you can opt
right?
into,
You have to
yes?
opt for it.
Okay.
And that's the first thing. And also the government also had stated that, this from the special advisor to the governor on housing matters. She said, that's Ms. Toke Benson Awinka. She said, with the state of the country, we cannot really enforce monthly tenancy. We need to create an enabling environment for people to subscribe into it. So it's not an enforcement. You can't compel anyone to be
You can
part
ask
of
a
it.
landlord to buy into that idea or not buy into
Buy,
that
no,
idea.
or not buy
But
into
being
it.
that you're in the estate sector,
Yeah.
do you think that enough landlords would, want to take this approach?
Okay, so as it is with this type of policy or our general policies, people really want to sit back to see how it will work first. But given the way the framework is provided, I think if it works that way, as a landlord, I would like to be part of it, because it means that I get my rent up front and I know who to hold. That is the government, to get me my rent as I when due.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that.
So we have messages coming in. Let's see,
I can really see we have messages.
we
Like,
have
a lot of them.
messages, like messages on messages. So once again, let's just introduce our guests to you. So we have Richard Abe, who's a real estate consultant, investment expert, and a lawyer, and CEO of Richard Abe Real Property Company. And we have Soji Ojerinde, who's a senior counsel and member of the Dispute Resolution Practice Group. You've been practicing for 10 years?
Yeah,
Over 10 years
yeah.
experience? Wow. Okay then. And your expertise Soji's expertise is in dispute resolution, representing clients on labor, intellectual property, and real property related disputes as well. So just know that, their brains are big. They can answer some questions. Now, let's go over to what you have to say. Now, Lenin says real estate is a business.
Mhm.
It is motivated by profit and the economic laws of demand and supply. If the supply of housing stock increases, weaker demand will automatically force landlords to offer sweeteners to tenants by providing flexible payment terms. Focus on enhancing development by tweaking the laws and the Land Use Act. This will not work, says Lenin. If it's not a law and an enforcement, then that is being pragmatic. Okay, we
Mojisola
have
comes in.
Mojisola.
She says, I understand that LL will be paid 1 year in advance by the government, and then the tenant will be debited in a monthly basis. Is this correct? If yes, I don't see the problem to the landlord.
All right.
Very correct.
Shala says, time value of money. Oh, okay. That's quite an interesting one, Shala. So Shala says 1.2 million naira at once today is better than 100,000 naira every month factoring inflation. But
Depends on how you look at it.
this
Yes.
goes really, so if a landlord is being paid upfront, it doesn't make that much of
So
a
the
difference.
problem is with
But
the
for
government.
the tenant, for the
Yeah,
government,
the problem is with
exactly.
the government.
And then for the tenants, it actually makes sense.
Yeah, it's a plus for the tenant. They are the ones who really are the end of advantage for this.
Okay, we've got more messages in. JD from Lucky says, on the tenancy payments, what if after the government has paid the landlord for the year and there's an issue between the landlord and tenant and there's an eviction within the year? What happens to the money for the rest of the year?
Well, questions.
That is a pertinent question.
Tell you what we should do. Let's go to a quick break one more time. When we get back, it'll be the final stretch of the show. Don't forget, this is Lagos Talks 981. It's a part of Smooth Breakfast with Shoka Martins and Kaidi Baker. So please stay with us.
Future forward banking.
Tenancy is an agreement now, so you can't evict someone within the term of the tenure of the tenancy.
It's mentioned that we try to reach out to them and we still hope that they will come
Yes.
around.
So you just have to put up the
Yeah.
tenants
It
until
It
the
wasn't me, I was
expiration of the
actually
tenancy.
looking at
Anyway,
you. Just
the
could
tenants
see
will
me.
have to
Yeah,
put
that
up
is-
the
landlord is saying.
Especially the landlord is
Focus
responsible.
on the conversation.
So, JP,
What's
can you
that?
move a little bit towards the side? A little, I think here
A
is
little more
getting
again.
more better. Are you sure? Towards him is going to be more better. For this space here. Okay. So can I move a little to Richard? Actually, I can't see you on YouTube. That's why I'm trying to.
Yes, sir.
Now it's better. No, Richard, you're okay. A
Okay, we
more,
need to
a
take
little
more
bit
calls.
Yes. Thank
We
you.
need to
That's
take more
perfect.
calls.
No, she's the last hour to take hold.
Last few minutes.
Yeah. Future forward banking. Let's get it going on.
It is the final few minutes of Lagos Talks, the special edition right here on Smooth Breakfast with Kaide Baker
and Shoko Martins, and you.
And
Lagos.
yes, we have got we have got this conversation going, and we want to get your take on it. So make sure you send your messages in, but also call us up. In fact, call us up on 0144899981 as we talk about the monthly rental scheme that is courtesy of the Lagos State government. Now, we would like to mention that we did reach out to Mrs. Toke Benson Awinka, who we've mentioned a couple of times on the show. She's a special advisor to the state governor on housing, and so we reached out to her and also to Dr. Rabiu Olo, the Lagos State Finance Commissioner, but we were not able to get them on the show in time to get this conversation going, and it is such a pertinent conversation that we needed to get it going. However, we do have in the studio with us two very helpful minds on this particular topic. So once again, we have got Soji Ojerinde, who's a senior counsel, a member of dispute resolution practice group with an expert in representing clients on labor, intellectual, and real property related issues, and Richard Abbey, the CEO of Richard Abbey Real Property Company. He's a real estate consultant, investment expert, and a lawyer as well. And we've got you. Join this conversation on 0144899981.
Hello, good morning. Hi, good morning. What's your name and what's your location? Hi, Mano. So, what questions do you have for our guests this morning?
Oh, okay, Emmanuel, I think you may have your radio on. Could you please turn it off for us? We've taken you off air. We're about to put you back on. Hopefully, you've done the need. It's
Feedback.
not, we have terrible feedback. 981.
Okay, and also don't forget, we've got messages still coming in as well. We're streaming live on YouTube. You can leave a message on our YouTube platform. It's youtube.com/smooth981FM Lagos. And we'll get to those messages in a few more minutes, just before we wrap up this side of the show. By the way, if you just joined us, we are talking about from yearly to monthly payments, basically navigating the rent in Lagos. Richard, I've got a question for you. While we'll get to the phone lines. Do you see this changing the housing sector in Lagos?
Well, I don't see much significant change this can bring to the housing sector in Lagos, because there are more prevalent issues really that are affecting housing in Lagos than paying monthly or yearly rent, right? Even for monthly and yearly rents to be for monthly rent to be practicable, there are a lot of things that need to be put in place. I mean, government needs to really encourage investment in rental housing by doing a lot of things, like simplifying the process of land registration, which is really, really cumbersome. My colleague is here. He can tell you how difficult it is to register a deed of assignment, register land process at the land registry. Also, the building approval system is not efficient. You want to build, right? It may take 2 years to get your building approval. Right? I don't know why it's that terrible. The access to capital is poor. You out of the country, you can get mortgage for very low interest rates, like 5%, 7%. But in Nigeria, I spoke with a developer friend, and she was telling me that the facility she gets, she pays at 25% for interest rate for 6 months and 50% for 12 months. That is crazy.
My goodness.
Yeah. So
okay, so while we ponder on that, let's hear what the callers have to say.
Hello, good morning. Good morning. Could you if we're off? Okay, perfect. Okay, go ahead. What's your name and location? Frank from Amuo Dolphin. Tell us what you think. Excuse me. Soji, I'm going to come to you. I'm going to come to you about government as middle agents and how this affects agents. Okay.
Or even in dollars.
Studio.
Exactly. That's
all right. Okay then, Frank. Thank you very much for asking that question. A question that Soji seems to have tapped into. Now, very quickly, Soji, because we did hear from an agent, and this is something that I think I would love to ask you about. So, first of all, this issue of government coming into this is a government scheme, government thought up, government approved, government financed so far. Now, can the government actually serve as a middleman between tenants and landlords? And if they do, what then happens to the role of the agents?
Well, the as we all know, the law seeks the policy as it were, basically seeks to bridge the gap between the landlord and the tenants by the government coming in as a middleman.
Mm.
The question is, what would then be the role of agents in all this scheme, and what have you? I don't know who will be pushing for the agent. Is it that the landlord will say, "Oh, I have an agent," or the tenant will say,
Yeah,
"Okay."
highly doubt that's going to happen.
Yeah, certainly. So it's going to really, in my view, affect the fees of the estate's agents. And if for whatever it is what the government think they want to bring them in, then we have a situation where perhaps the fees will be fixed, probably a flat rate applicable to. So it won't be a situation where you have agents insisting on, oh, it's 10% billing, 10%, oh, nothing more, nothing less, 10%. But you have government will just tell you this rent is this amount, we can't pay you. What do you want to do to government at that instance?
Richard, do you want to respond to that?
Okay, so my view about that is the scheme talks about rent payment. You know, in real estate transaction, rent is on one hand, agencies on another hand, documentation is another applicable charge. So I believe that it might just be limited to that. We've not really seen the detailed framework, but I believe it's just going to be the rent. The agents would still be likely entitled to get their agency, most possibly now from the tenant. What the government is taking obligation to do is to pay the rent, right? So the tenant would most likely still pay the agency.
Sorry if I may chip in. The payment he highlighted now, sometimes you have some very funny landlords that collect everything, agreement, commission, and the rent. So we collect everything. So this is actually going to affect everything. Like,
okay,
a lot will change for those who subscribe to it.
That's an interesting one. And you know what, Richard, we don't have too much time, but I'd like to end on a money note because, you know, we talk money. So real quick, in your opinion, how exactly do you see this scheme enticing investors so that, you know, it gets bigger?
I don't see it enticing investors.
In any way, shape, or form?
I don't see it. Because with or without this scheme, see, if I have a property for rent in Nigeria, I would mostly be getting up to 10 calls for that property a day, right? So if someone is coming to tell me that he wants to take me to one government to pay their yearly rent, I think I'm not sure I'll be patient to wait for that. I really want to get my money quick from the other people who are ready to pay themselves.
So you're saying, I mean, because and I've noticed this as well, you know, when you go house hunting, the houses are gone because everybody else has just jumped on them. Yeah. So if demand is so high, yeah, how exactly do you see this? Do you see this taking hold, catching roots?
So those are the issues that we really need to look into to really determine the practicability of this scheme. I hope the government really have taken due consideration of all these relevant facts in Lagos real estate before you say Jack Robinson, another person has taken the house you were planning to take, right? So it may just pose a lot of challenge, and people who want to latch onto this scheme might not really be able to. Just as we have difficulty in accessing mortgage already in Nigeria, this may just be another real issue. It may just be like what we call the dead law, a symbolic law that may just be in existence but not really applicable and offline. Just as we have the don't sell in traffic, but people are still selling in traffic today.
In front of police officers.
Yes.
But that is that for today's show.
Yes. Once again, it's been Richard Abe, real estate consultant. Also we had Sojo Jeremy, a lawyer and a senior counsel, of course, a member of the dispute resolution practice group. And we've been having that conversation about
Tenants law.
Sorry again?
of Denton's Acres Law.
Of Denton's
Okay.
Acres Law.
Oh, what's
You
amazing.
mentioned the group, so it's
I love it.
really necessary for me to also mention that. Of course,
Definitely.
dispute resolution group of Denton's Acres Law.
On Denton's Acres Law. Thank you so much.
You
Such
can
your
find on
journey.
social media.
Yes. You can find them on social media. What's happening? I was wondering.
Yes, on social media.
At Soji OJ and at Richard Abbey _.
There we go.
Yes, go and find them. Go and ask them more questions because we had so many questions and so many calls coming in. We should have had like 3 hours for Lagos Talks today. Unfortunately, we only had 14 minutes. But don't you worry. Use the hashtag Lagos Talks and find them on Twitter at Soji .oj and Richard Abbey _ on Instagram. Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, that's that for Lagos Talks, the special on monthly rent. And coming up, we have got more for you in terms of sports inside the locker room. Stick with us.
Thank you, gentlemen, for
All
coming.
right.
Thank you so much for having us, contributing to this conversation and driving it forward.
Very good. Okay, photo time, guys.
Okay.